I think reading part C is the trickiest part of the OET test because the paragraphs that you have to read are dense and substantial. And some of the multiple choice questions get you to read for something that is quite tricky, including one that you're going to see at the end of this video. My name is Jay, and in this video, we're going to take a close look at reading part C. If you are unfamiliar with reading part C, this is what you have to do. So in reading part C, you need to read very carefully. You're going to receive two texts. They will be on different topics. Each text will have about 800 words. For each text, there will be 8 4-option multiple choice questions. Each of those multiple choice questions has a different reading function. So for example, the first question might get you to read for gist or overall meaning. The second question will get you to concentrate on a specific detail. The third question might get you to read for an inference or something like that. So each of the multiple choice questions gets you to read for something. They have a different function. But overall, you are reading for detailed meaning and opinion. So this is kind of what the text looked like on test day. This one is about the brain to gut connection. Here's one paragraph and here's another paragraph. So the text types that you'll see on test day are similar to sort of like medical journals or medical magazines that you would read on the internet, not academic journal articles. That's far too technical. These are for the broader public, but they're still a little bit technical, okay? But it's very similar to those sorts of texts that you would see. And this is what the questions look like. Let's take a look at number 22 here. It says, what do we learn about the brain to gut connection in the first paragraph? So there's a few things I want to point out here. First of all, it says the first paragraph. So it actually directs you where to read, which is good. And what we can learn from this particular question prompt is that it's going to ask us to read for the general meaning of something. Let's look at question 23. In the second paragraph, Dr. Kendra highlights that the enteric system does what? So here we're probably reading for a detail. And if we look at number 24, why does Dr. Kendra use the phrase place a bet, which you can see underlined when discussing the body's other brain? This is an example of a vocabulary word in context question. So you can see from the questions there what you're reading for, the function of the question. Are you reading for overall meaning? Are you reading for a detail? Are you reading for a particular word in context? Okay, just before we move on and actually do these questions, which I want to do with you, I want to talk to you about E2's OET mini mock test. If you have never taken the OET test before or you've taken it been unsuccessful, you should take our mini mock test with feedback because it's going to tell you exactly what you're doing right and, more importantly, what you're doing wrong. It also comes with a one-on-one speaking simulation and writing feedback. Check it out in the link in the description below. Okay, so let's do question number 22. You can pause this video or you can listen to me read the paragraph and we'll go through it together. So feel free to pause now if you want. Okay, so let's read the paragraph first. The brain to gut connection. A fundamental connection exists between our brain and our gut. We often experience a gut feeling when we meet someone for the first time. We are told to trust our gut instinct when making a difficult decision. This mind-gut connection is not just metaphorical. Our brain and gut are connected by an extensive network of neurons and a highway of chemicals and hormones that constantly give us feedback on whether we are hungry, whether we are experiencing stress, or if we have ingested a disease-causing microbe. This information superhighway is called the brain-gut axis, and it provides us with constant updates on whether our mind and body are processing at any given moment. That sinking feeling in the pit of your gut after seeing if the bills needed to be paid is a vivid example of the brain-gut connection at work. You're stressed and your gut knows it immediately. So, it's pretty understandable text, right? You can understand that. And one thing you should definitely do on test day is make sure that you read very carefully. You are given enough time to do this. This is not a speed reading test. You should read that paragraph, fully understand it, then turn your attention to the question, which we'll do now. So, question 22. What do we learn about the brain to gut connection in the first paragraph? A, it can potentially lead people to make poor choices. Now, do you remember if it said that anywhere in the paragraph? I cannot. It said something about gut feelings and gut instincts. It did not say anything about making poor choices. So let's eliminate A. B, information travels faster away from the brain than to it. Can you remember anything said about that? I can't. It certainly does say that the brain and gut are connected by a network of neurons and a highway of chemicals, etc., but nothing about the brain being faster or slower or anything like that. What about C? Its relationship has only been discovered recently. Did it say anything about that? It didn't. I can't remember it saying anything about that. That's really just not provided there, so we can eliminate that one as well. Let's look at D. The gut is constantly interpreting messages from the brain. Let's look more closely at this paragraph, and we can see a few parts of the paragraph where it does mention that. It says the brain-gut axis, and it provides us with constant updates on whether our mind and body are processing at any given moment, the brain-gut connection at work, and your gut knows it immediately. So D, the gut is constantly interpreting messages from the brain, is definitely the best choice here. A, B, and C can be eliminated. Let's go with D. So how did you go there? Do you feel like you would have chosen D in the exam? Hopefully you would have. Okay, let's do another one of these together. Okay, so you can pause the video here and do this question by yourself, or I will read it and we can do it together. Here we go. So, Dr. Kendra from the University of Pittsburgh Brain Institute refers to the enteric nervous system as our body's second brain. There are hundreds of millions of neurons connecting the brain to the enteric nervous system, the part of the nervous system that is tasked with controlling the gastrointestinal system, he says. In fact, this vast web of connections monitors the entire digestive tract. The enteric nervous system is so extensive that it can operate as an independent entity without input from our central nervous system, although they are in regular communication. While our second brain cannot compose a symphony or paint a masterpiece the way the brain in our skull can, it does perform an important role in managing the workings of our inner tube. The network of neurons in the gut is as plentiful and complex as the network of neurons in our spinal cord, which may seem overly complex just to keep track of digestion. So the question is, why is our gut the only organ in our body that needs its own brain? Some in the scientific community suggest it's simply to manage the process of digestion. Others argue that at least one of its many jobs is to listen in on the trillions of microbes residing in the gut. I'd certainly place a bet on the latter. So there was a lot going on in that paragraph. So now what we're going to have to do is read the question and the answer options, and we're probably going to have to do a little dance of back and forth to make sure that we really can eliminate incorrect answer options to arrive at the correct answer option and confirm that, okay? So let's do that now. So in the second paragraph, Dr. Kendra highlights that the enteric system works simultaneously with the body's spinal cord. If we look here, it says the network of neurons in the gut is as plentiful and complex as the network of neurons in our spinal cord. Does it say it works simultaneously with the body's spinal cord? I'm not so sure. I'm probably going to just leave that one or possibly eliminate it. I'm not happy with it. Let's try B. So in the second paragraph, Dr. Kendra highlights that the enteric system lacks the creative components of the brain in our heads. This is a good one because perhaps you remember reading that it said, while our second brain cannot compose a symphony or paint a masterpiece the way the brain in our skull can. In other words, it lacks the creative components of the brain in our heads. So what we have discovered here is that that answer option B, that statement says the same thing as the text, but just in different words. That means we found the right answer. But we don't stop there. We do want to eliminate C and D first, just to make sure that B is actually correct. So let's do that. So in the second paragraph, Dr. Kendra highlights that the enteric system requires information from the central nervous system to operate. Well, if we look closely, it says here, the enteric nervous system is so extensive that it can operate as an independent entity. Here it says it requires information from the central nervous system. Not happy with that. It's contradictory information. What about D? So the enteric system is a well-researched area of the body's nervous system. Well, not really, because if you look down here, there is disagreement. Some believe this, others believe that. Therefore, we can kind of infer that it's not a well-researched area. Well, maybe it could be, but I just don't think that that's a very good answer option. It certainly leaves B as a much better option there, that very much corresponds with what's written in the text. So you can see how important it is to go through and really do that little dance of back and forth to eliminate to arrive at the correct answer option. Let's do a different style of question now called vocabulary in context. Take a look at this one. So question 24 says, why does Dr. Kendra use the phrase place a bet when discussing the body's other brain? And if you look carefully at the paragraph, right at the bottom, you can see in bold and underlined the phrase place a bet. Now, one of the things that you cannot do, even if you know the meaning of that phrase, you cannot just look at the answer options and select one, because it has to come from the context of the paragraph. So there might be multiple correct answer options there according to the phrase itself, but only one will make sense based in the context or from the context of the paragraph. So let's do that now. Okay, so the question says, why does Dr. Kendra use the phrase place a bet when discussing the body's other brain? And down here, you can see that same phrase underlined and made bold. One of the things that you cannot do on test day is actually just think, I know what place a bet means, and then look at A, B, C, D and choose one, because the meaning has to come from the context of the paragraph or the meaning from the paragraph, okay? So let's take a closer look at the paragraph and understand that phrase in context. We'll start here. So it says, so the question is, why is our gut the only organ in our body that needs its own brain? Some in the scientific community suggest it's simply to manage the process of digestion. Others argue that at least one of its many jobs is to listen in on the trillions of microbes residing in the gut. I'd certainly place a bet on the latter. In other words, Dr. Kendra thinks that its role is to listen in on the trillions of microbes residing in the gut. So let's look at A. He thinks its role in digestion is important. Yeah, let's put a question mark there. He feels that more research needs to be done. It's certainly not suggesting that. The phrase place a bet really has nothing to do with that. What about C? He believes strongly that its function is complex. I tell you what, I like this bit here, believe strongly. Because if you're going to place a bet on something, it's really like gambling. You're thinking, okay, I have various options. I think this one's going to win. So you believe strongly in something. So you can see how the meaning of the phrase here has actually entered the answer option C, and it's also in the paragraph there. But let's eliminate D just to make sure. He suspects scientists are close to a major breakthrough. Well, it just doesn't really say that in the paragraph itself. So we've eliminated B and D, and we're not quite sure about A, and we're quite happy with C. On test day, I would choose C and go with that. So you can see that reading part C is tricky. It really is. The paragraphs are quite dense. You have to understand them very deeply. And then the answer options sort of trick you and tempt you. You really have to eliminate incorrect ones, and you have to confirm the one that you think is correct as well. That will really maximize your scores on test day. If you want to do more practice with good quality practice materials, click the link in the description below. You can go across to the website and you can actually get a full test for free. Cool. Thanks very much for watching. I hope that was helpful. Don't forget to subscribe. My name is Jay. I'll see you soon.